Welcome back to Blam Blam Truckers. I'm Bees. I'm doing a solo video on Rogues. If you've been watching the rest of the series, you know this is EverQuest, baby. And the new server starts in 2 days. 2 days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 3 days, however you want to count that. Today is Monday, Memorial Day, as I am recording this, May 25th. New server starts on the 27th. I'm trying to do 5 classes in 2 days. I don't know if I'm going to make it. We're doing the Rogue today. Alright, like the rest of the video, there are 6 roles in EverQuest. There are traditional 3 found in all MMORPGs. There are jelly rolls and cinnamon rolls and... oh wait, tanker, healing, DPS, damage. Those are your 3 main roles. Then you have your EverQuest exclusive roles. Crowd control, buffer debuffer, and pulling. Alright. Rogues do damage. That's it. They can pull, but not particularly well. They do a lot of other things for the group that we don't use much anymore, that was used back in Classic. They have a lot of skills they bring to the game, bring to the table, but what they mostly bring is damage, and lots of damage. And current live, they're one of the top 2 damage dealing classes in the game. In Classic, they do a little bit less damage than a monk. Not a lot less, just a little bit less if you're not parsing. And we're talking about a difference of gear. Like, and a maximum geared rogue is about equal to a maximally geared monk. They're about equals. As the expansions come out, the rogues start to pull ahead. Backstab just does more damage than Dragon Punch and Flying Kick put together. It does. Rogues do what is called positional melee damage. This is not a term you hear very often, but when you do, it is exactly what it describes. When you backstab, you need to be at the back of the mob. You need to be behind the monster you're trying to kill. And then you stand there and you backstab. Now, some of the changes to the game have changed the way rogues play. So I'm just going to go through how you do damage, then I'll go through and talk about your skills and what you bring to the group. Also, rogues can't solo well. Even fully geared, you're talking about, you do as much damage as a warrior and you have less AC. Rogues wear up to chainmail, which gives them decent AC. You can survive a few fights, but you can't flop like a monk, buddy. You just can't do it. On the other hand, you bring a lot of damage. And you bring a lot of other skills nobody else brings. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, the slash auto skill. We talked about this with monks, we talked about this with rangers. I don't think we talked about this with beast lords, but beast lords can use it too. You type in slash auto skill space backstab when you get backstab at level 10, and now you will automatically, whenever you have auto attack on, you will automatically backstab whenever it's available. You never have to worry about it again. Get behind. The only race that might not do that is barbarians, so they can slam when they're in front of the target, but I don't think it's worth it. I play a barbarian rogue, throw on an auto skill, get behind the mob, stay behind the mob. Evade. Okay, so you get the skills sneak and hide, and pickpocket, and disarm. We'll talk about all that in a minute. But what's important about this is if you are in combat, and mobs, and you're on the hate list of mobs, their aggro list, whatever you want to call it, and you turn off auto attack and hit your hide button, you have a chance to evade. A very high chance to evade. Not perfect, though. What that means is you will lower yourself on the hate list by about 10 to 20 points, sometimes even more than that. So out of maximum of 100, a good hide will drop you down to 90. A great hide will drop you down to 50. But there's a lot of other factors going on for where people are in the hate list and how much other people are doing damage to it and how close they are. Proximity is a factor, etc., and so forth. You want to evade early, you want to evade often. Evade does not always work, and when you are counting on it to work because you drew too much damage, you drew too much aggro from doing way too much damage, that is when it usually fails for me. Now that's just me. I am a statistical anomaly. I am often a statistical anomaly. That means I have a lot of luck in layman's terms. Not all good luck, not all bad luck, but I have a lot of it. All right. So, this is how you set up an evade key. You don't need a backstab key anymore. This is an evade key. You could go to the macros, you right click on it, and you type in for your first line / auto attack space off. Then you go do ability 1, which is hopefully pickpocket, or whichever ability pickpocket is. Then you put in do ability 2 or 3 or 4. You have 6 abilities on your action window. So you can put into up to 6 do abilities. So me, I like disarm as my second ability, but there's a few choices you have for what you can put in there. Begging will not work with pickpocket. Then lastly, you do ability 3 or 6 or whatever it is for hide. Then for your last line of your macro, you do / auto attack on. What this does is it turns off your auto attack so you can pickpocket during combat. You can do whatever other skill you put there. It used to be backstab. I used to do pickpocket, backstab, hide. But backstab's on auto skill now. We don't need to do that anymore. That opens it up. I like to use disarm, but there's other abilities you can put in there. We can talk about it. Or you may just not put any other ability in there at all. You just pickpocket and hide. Hide is evade. Same thing. And then you turn back your auto attack on. You're out for less than a tick, and it lets you pickpocket. It might let you disarm, and it drops your aggro, which is what you really need it for most of the time. Pickpocket is not that great, but it's not that bad. You might as well keep it maxed out, and it gives you a little extra cash, and sometimes some gems and other small things. You'll also want to make an auto inventory key. You may put that in instead of a third ability. You might do auto attack off, pickpocket, auto inventory, hide, auto attack on. That's fine. That's a very valid. That's actually a really good standard use of the evade key. So you want to evade often. You want to evade before you go yellow. After 70, I think 70 is when out of 100 you have 100 hate. You can go over 100 too, but you have 100 hate. And by the time you're yellow at 70, you're going to be mashing that evade key. It doesn't always work. So when you're at like 20 or 30, hit evade. And then you're going to be back there. You're going to have procs on your weapons that are innate to the weapon. You're going to have augs on your weapons that also proc. Melee augs, augments, whatever you want to call them. And you're going to be backstabbing. You're doing a ton of damage. You're one of the top damage dealing classes in the game. Even in original, where you're now eclipsed by monks, doesn't matter. You're still one of the top damage dealing classes in the game. You're sitting back there backstabbing and doing melee damage and triple attack and all this other stuff. You're going to do a lot of damage, buddy. You're going to go right up that hate list. When you get about 20, hit evade. The next opportunity you're going to have is not going to be at 20 because evade takes time. All these skills have a cooldown. They all have about the same cooldown. So you should have those skills listed. Like you have hide itself down in a lower one of your skill slots. So you can see when it pops back up and it's available again. And when it is, hit it again. Evade early, evade often. The next time you hit it, you might be at 40 or 50 or even 60 by the time, because you're doing so much damage, by the time you can evade again, you're way up higher on the hate list. You want to get as low on the hate list as you possibly can. You're not a monk. You can't drop it to 0 when you flop. When we go to wizards, we'll talk about concussion. We talked about this with rogues and jolt. Not rogues, rangers and jolt. Jolt lowers you on the hate list. If you don't want to tank, if you don't want to take the hits, get lower on the hate list. Nice thing about rogues is they have chain armor. Can they tank? They can take a few hits. They can tank a mob here and there. get it off the wizard or the healer or the enchanter, sure. For, one mob once in a while, you can take a bunch of hits, but you're not a tank. You're not going to build yourself. AC is not the stat you're looking for. The stat you're looking for first is strength, and then haste is probably the top thing you're looking for. But strength, as far as base stats go, and attack is another thing you're looking for. You are a damage dealing class, one of the best in the game. You want to deal damage. All right. Let's talk about your race choices. What else? What else do I need to tell you about? Pulling works like every other class. Scouting. There's other things you can do inside. We'll talk about skills when we get to them in a minute. Hold on one second. I just told you, stat-wise, you're looking for strength. Barbarians have the highest strength. Dwarves have the second highest strength. The next stat you're looking for is dex. Barbarians have an okay dex. Dwarves have a better dex. Now, dwarves have the best dex, tied with halflings. Does that make dwarves better than barbarians? No. Strength is your go-to stat. Now, eventually, at the end of Velius, and definitely by the time Lucklin gets along, you're at top level, you're maxed out, you're going to be able to get to 255 strength, which is the top level of strength. Doesn't matter which race you pick, eventually you'll get there, if you're sticking around that long. If you're like almost every other player who comes in May and leaves in July, this matters. Barbarian or dwarf are your top two choices. Otherwise, you're just playing because you like the race and you think it's cool. There's everything right about that. If it's going to help you play more, because you're like, I'm a cool little gnome. I'm a gnome and I do my tinkering and I'm just tiny and I'm awesome. Great. Play your gnome. It's gnome. I know it's pronounced gnome. If you want to be a halfling so that you can, pretend you're Bilbo Baggins, awesome. Play it. However, if you're just looking for pure stats, Barbarian's the way to go. Their agility is over 75. That's good. Their stamina is the highest. Stamina is your third consideration. It goes strength. It goes strength way up here at the top of the camera. Where are you? Top of the camera. Dexterity and stamina. And stamina. You got to be able to take a hit. After that, you don't care. Wisdom doesn't matter. Int doesn't matter. Charisma, only nice for selling. And you can go buy or make 2 opal encrusted steins like we talked about with the monkey. Charisma for most people, except for enchanters, bards, and necros, doesn't matter. Necros actually want negative charisma for their charming, which is weird. They charm undead. It's weird. It's not a normal situation, but they're not a normal class. Back to rogues. Okay. We talked about that. We talked about what stats do. We talked about your racial choices. Also, one of the cool things about rogues is you can get various masks that allow you to look like other races. So you get, the first one is the Dark Elf mask. That's in Classic. Then I think it's the Erudite mask. And anyway, you get masks for every single race. If you can get them, you can get masks for every single race. That's pretty awesome. I know there's an Ixar mask that drops in Kunark. Or you quest for it, I forget. It's off the top of my head. I don't remember. We could look it up, but you guys can also look it up on your own. EverQuest Ixar mask for rogues and bards. Enter. All right. The number one attack weapon you need is a piercing weapon. You can only backstab with a piercing weapon, not a two-hand piercer, just a regular piercing weapon, like a knife or a spear. Your offhand, I don't care what you put in your offhand. Whatever has the best ratio, whatever has the best stats. Often you will get 2 great daggers because nobody else wants them. That's not true of all daggers, but end game, the daggers that drop off like Yale or there's one in Kedge Keep. the daggers that drop aren't as good as the other weapons. They're not bad, but they're not as good as the other weapons. People give them to rogues. Like, you're doing a raid as a rogue, you're probably going to walk out of there with a dagger. Not every time, but if you're the only rogue in there, and that happens a lot because people don't play them because monks are... Better's the wrong word. More popular. Monks are drastically more popular. They're easier to play. They can't do as much, but they can also do more. They're amazing pullers, and rogues are not. And they do about as much damage as rogues do. You want piercing. And you can crit on pierces... Wait a minute. Rogues can score a critical hit with throwing weapons. Rogues can score a deadly strike with throwing weapons. What is this about piercing? Three dots. Rogues have a higher skill cap on piercing while leveling. Good to know. Alright. I don't care what your offhand is. Keep all your different skills up. You never know what kind of weapon you're going to get. But you're going to get dual wield at 13, which is not the earliest for dual wield, but it ain't bad. It's one of the earliest for dual wields. Monks get it at level 1. I think 13 is the next highest you can get it. But as we walk through this, after we get through the weapon skills, we get to 4, you get dodge. You're going to use that a lot. Backstab at 10. That's your bread and butter. Get behind the mob, backstab them. Put it on auto skill, forget about it. You're going to be a damage machine as long as you're behind the mob and in range. 12, you get parry. That's good. You need that. That's a defensive skill. Dual wield at 13. Good. Now you're doing more damage, aren't you? Double attack at 16. Now you're doing a lot more damage, aren't you? Intimidation, which is a fear, which you should probably never use in a group. And then disarm at 27. Okay, let's talk about disarm. And you get riposte at 30, which is another defensive skill that this one does damage. Nice skill. But you just level those up by... You level up dodge, parry, and riposte by getting hit. So you're going to level them up as they go. That's all there is to it. Excuse me. I'm okay. Disarm at 27. Why is disarm my choice for the evade skill? I'll tell you why. End game. Okay. End game disarm is awesome. Getting to end game, it's kind of annoying, but you want to level it up. Disarm makes the mob disarm. They take off one of the weapons they're using. So if it's a non-magical weapon like fine steel, they'll drop it to the ground. Or, well, it's level 27. It'll probably be fine steel. If it's not a level if it's a magical weapon, if it's a non-magical weapon. Wow, really? That's what I'm going to say here? A non-magical weapon. If it is a magical weapon, they don't drop it to the ground. They put it in their inventory, and they're not using it to bash you upside the head anymore. That's nice. They do less... Mobs generally do less damage hand-to-hand, like players do, than they do armed. So disarm, once you get to the point where you're not fighting creatures with fine steel weapons anymore, but only magical weapons, cheesy magical weapons often, but magical weapons, disarm doesn't drop it to the ground. It forces the mob to put it in their inventory. That's not a real life, that's not a game reflecting real life. That is a game being a game. So people can still roll on it and no one can steal it and be cheap about it. Disarm should be in every melee class's rotation at end level, but you got to level it up to get there. Anyway, disarm becomes very useful once you stop, and fair for the group once you stop fighting mobs that drop non-magical weapons. So, bear that in mind. Disarm, that's why I put disarm in my thing, because in my evade key, so that I'm using it all the time. Nobody wants to fight a mob. You're helping the mob do less damage, so you're helping your group take less damage by disarming the mob. And it doesn't cost you anything by any action, efficiency or anything by putting it into your evade key. All right. Miscellaneous skills. This is where rogues really start to shine. Excuse me. It's May, and I'm wearing a sweater, and I got the heater running. Welcome to New England. Most Mays, it's like 90 degrees, 80, 90 degrees right now. Today, it's a little over 60. Rogues get sneak at level 1. You're the only class to get sneak at level 1. Sneak is a skill that when you click it, if you walk behind a mob, even if you're right up next to them, they can't see you. You're indifferent to them. It's great for other classes to get behind a mob and sell for vendors if the vendor won't sell to you otherwise or interact with you otherwise. As long as you're behind them, you can click on them, and even if they turn around to face you, well, you've already got the window open and you're stuck at indifferent faction at that point, which is good for you. Sneak by itself is nice. It is not great. It's just nice. Rogues, however, also get hide at level 3. Hide makes you invisible to everything. Everything. You want to max these skills out. One of the advantages of being a halfling is both of these start at 50 at level 1. That's nice. That is very nice. But if you're going to make yourself a sneak hide key button, and I'm going to tell you why. If you are sneaking and then you hit hide as a rogue, and only as a rogue, you are invisible to both living and undead, and you're moving at a much slower rate. So your speed goes down, but your invisibility is the best in the game. By far. Nobody else can do this to themselves. And Buse will get in with, like, if you time it just right, and you're playing two characters, and one of them casts Invis, and the other one casts Invis to Undead on the same time, you guys can both nail each other with the same spell, and you'll be able to put it on one person with two characters. He's not wrong. And if you practice it, it gets easier and easier to do. But, rogues, you click one macro. And that macro is do ability 1, sneak. Do ability 2, hide. That's it. Stand still, because you can't hide while you're moving. Stand still. Click the button. As soon as it hits, and it'll tell you. It'll give you, on your text screen, it'll tell you whether or not you succeeded. You are silent as a cat stalking its prey. You are as loud as a herd of elephants. You have hidden yourself from view. You have failed to hide yourself from view. If you're scrolled out, which almost everybody is, into third-person mode, if you're invisible, it will give you parentheses around your name, indicating you're invisible, if it works. Max this out. This is your bread and butter. This is why you play a rogue, so you can go and do sneaky, underhanded things. And this is the start of it. Speaking of sneaky, underhanded things, you get Picklock. You're one of 2 classes that get Picklock, and you have the max. Bars get it up to like 100, you get it up to 200. There are very few locked doors in this game you can't picklock. Go out, buy a set of picklocks, go over to Payneal, and practice on the Payneal elevator stone. Trust me, you'll know what I'm talking about there. It's a stone on the ground. If you click on it with your picklocks out, you will practice picklock. You can get up to 200 there. Go, do it. Do it once you're able to hit 200, which is what? 200 divided by 5 is what, 20? Let's get out the calculator here. 20 sounds right. 200 divided by 5. It's probably 40. 40. Yeah. So technically level 39. Go over to Payneal at level 39 or 40 and just max click out on that. Just to click it over and 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 over, and then you're 200. You have to have the lock picks on your cursor when you're clicking it. So, with the lock picks on your cursor, bam, you'll hit 200. It's awesome. 210 after level 50. And then you can get into Old Seb. You can get into all the locked doors. You can get into all the locked doors inside Old Seb. You can get anywhere. You're a rogue. That's what you do. Pickpocket, you get that at 7. It gives you a little bit more cash. It is a separate loot table now because people were screaming about it. You can pickpocket items, non-magical items, whatever the mob has on them. It is not a huge boost, but it is nice, and it does make me smile every time it works. You have pickpocketed 1 platinum. Yay! That's why it's in my evade macro. Sense traps. You will not use this much at all in Classic. It's nice to have. Also, disarm traps, or whatever it's called down there. Where is it? Yeah, disarm traps. You will not use this much at all in Classic. It factors in later in the game. Safe fall. You practice this by falling. You do not have the best safe fall in the game. That's monks, but you take less damage from falls after level 12. 18. Apply poison. 20. Make poison. It's so useless. So it's a trade skill. If you like trade skilling, you might like this. And it does have other uses besides poison, but you can apply a poison to your blade, equip it, and you get one use out of it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, you just wasted time and money. Eventually, and I don't remember which expansion, long after Classic, and this may not be true on TLPs, but everybody I've talked to says it is, and I have not bothered to try it for myself because trade skilling is boring in my opinion. And there's a lot of people out there who say it's not, and hey, I love you people. I will send you component parts if you will make stuff for me. I will send you 10 times the component, 100 times the component parts I need for my thing to be made just so I don't have to bother making it. I don't like trade skills. Poison eventually gets to the point in later expansions where it has a number of charges. So you apply it to your blade, you put your blade in your hand, and now you can get 10 or 15 charges, different swipes at them to do extra damage with poison. It ends up being very, very nice, and it helps you out-damage monks and everyone else in the game. Poisons are eventually great. In Classic, 2 thumbs down. Alright, that's it for the rest of these non-combat skills. So you can sneak around, you can get into places nobody else can get to. You can pickpocket, which is part of your epic, and you want your epic. Your epic is very nice. Are there better knives out there? Yep. When do they start dropping? Lachlan? Two expansions later? Do you still want your epic? Yeah, it's wicked easy to get. You do eventually get disciplines after level 50. There's a few others. I'm going to go over to the Alakazam screen here. Now you can get Throw Stone, which we talked about with the monks, which is not worthless, but boy does it come close. Elbow Strike, again, not worthless, but why? You're so busy doing other things, why bother with Elbow Strike? Yeah, I just did 5 more points of damage. Yay! Look, at level 1, that's a big deal. Or 5 when it comes in, that's a big deal. You are going to stop using this thing pretty much when you hit 10 and get backstabbed. You might continue using it. You might love it. If you do, great. Do what makes you happy. Having said that, it's 5 points of damage. It's on a timer. It's not really something I bother with. Focused Will Discipline. It increases your hit points 3 per tick while it's active. So after a fight, when you're binding yourself up after soloing, which you shouldn't really do much of, yeah, it's nice. Resistant Discipline. You'll use this in raids more than in groups. Same with Focused Will Discipline. Actually, you won't in raids. Focused Will Discipline is for soloing, not for groups. Whereas Resistant Discipline, you might use it in a group. You're welcome to. It's a great skill. By all means, but if you're evading properly, you're not getting hit. And most mobs you're fighting in groups don't do AoE. So if they're not targeting you, you're not getting hit. Awesome. You don't need this. Fearless Discipline. This you will probably use in groups once in a great while when you're fighting an enemy that fears. If you know you're going up against an enemy that fears, pop this once in a while. Then you don't run away like a scared little rogue. 53, Counterattack Discipline. This is amazing. You repost 10,000. Your chance to repost goes up 10,000%. All melee attacks done to you will be returned to their opponent. Put this on your bar. Use it in groups. Use it whenever you get aggro, use this. Then evade immediately afterwards, once it dies off. Once it ends, evade. Get back behind the mob and backstab where you belong. Deadeye Discipline. Increased chance to hit by 10,000% with all skills. You're hitting in groups, you're hitting everything anyway. You are. This is for fighting mob bosses, raid bosses. 55, nimble discipline. Increased chance to dodge. Also a life-saving skill. If you get aggro, hit that. 57, kinesthetics discipline. It increases your dual wield and your double attack. If you want to do a ton of damage at a particular point, use that. You can use it in groups, you can use it in raids, you can use it soloing. It's a nice little discipline to have. 58, blinding speed discipline. It's a self-haste. It's a temporary self-haste. It's a burst of damage. Use it. You don't, again, most of these disciplines you're not going to need in groups, but they're like icing on the cake. They're nice, they help, they're really built for raids. Duelist discipline. Increase all skills damage modifier by 50%. Increase all skills damage modifier, so your backstab's going to go through the roof. Increase all skills minimum damage modifier by 400%. You want to do some damage? Do some damage. You can only use one of these at a time, so you can stack them up in a fight. And then when they start repopping, hit them again. That's Dragons of Norath. That's Planes of Power. Boom, boom, boom. 60 is when we're stopping. So that's a rogue. That is the fastest video I've done in a while. Rogues are a ton of fun. They're underappreciated in groups. I talked about that in the monk video, which is too bad because they do a lot of damage. They're a lot of fun to play with. And unlike monks, they're not running out to pull. So they finish. One of the things rogues do is they finish off the mob. So when the mob gets down to like 10% health or more, a puller is going to run off and go get the next mob. So we bring back 3 or so, 2 or 3 mobs. We all power through one. Let's say it's 2. As we're going through the second one, it gets down to 20 to 30. 20% health is usually when I run. Some people run at 30, some people run at 10. You run and go get the next group of mobs as a puller. You bring back another 2, another 3, whatever. Rogue stays. We don't pull. We don't have any pulling advantages. We don't. Our throws do have a chance to crit. Great. Okay. We can also use a bow and arrow. Great. You're not going to be doing a lot of range damage. You can, if you want to, when the mob's running in, but why? You want to get behind the mob, you want the warrior, or you want the tank, whatever's tanking, to get the mob's attention, and then you want to go to town. You're going to be doing so much damage behind them, you don't want the aggro from hitting them while they're at full health. Having said that, you're going to have to evade off that aggro. It's just one more thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just one more thing. Is that how you want to play it? That's up to you. That's your choice as a player. Maybe doing all that extra damage and throwing elbows at the same time is important to you. If that is, great. Play it that way. But you don't have to. You can just get behind the mob, tuck in, and kill it. So when the monk is running off, when the mob gets down to 20%, the monk runs off to go get more mobs, you're there doing the finishing blow. If the main assist switches targets, which is why rogues probably shouldn't be main assist, though they make fine main assists. The main assist starts switching targets when the mob goes down to 10%. Stay on the mob and kill it. You have backstab. It is pissed off at someone else. Stay behind the mob and kill it. You are the assassin. You are the ninja. You're here to give the coup de grace and finish the mob off. You do a lot of damage. Enjoy it. Keep on trucking, you blam blam truckers.